You're tuned in to RBLR, the home of Tampa Bay's Reveler Sports.
4 seconds left. In front. Happy moment. The Tampa Bay Lightning have won the first Stanley Cup. And the Tampa Bay Lightning have won the Stanley Cup. Lightning strikes twice. The Tampa Bay Lightning win their second straight Stanley Cup.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of RBLR Lightning. As always, my name is Jake Ricker. Alongside me is Matt Gitt and Michael Wex and Alexa Carlton. Guys, welcome back to the show. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. If you're new here, welcome. We got an awesome show coming up here for you. We'll be looking at the Lightning and Leafs game, previewing that, and looking ahead at the Lightning playoff schedule. And if you're coming back again, thank you guys so much for returning. We really appreciate you. If you guys can, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out, and we really do appreciate it. All right, guys, first and foremost, before we get into the preview, how you doing today?
I'm doing terrific. Jake, you're coming in here with a great energy as well. After a bit of a rough week of hockey, I think we're all feeling good and we're all ready for these playoffs to start. Michael, how are you doing yourself?
You're exactly right, because I looked at this past week. I was like, you know what? They're not playing that well. And then I looked and I saw, you know what? Saturday's probably game one. And I'm super pumped for that. Alexa, how are you?
I'm great. I'm ready for win number 45 to close out the season, and I'm ready for playoffs for sure.
Can you hear us yet, Jake?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Sorry about that, folks. I had a little bit of some audio issues there, but I fixed it. We're all good now. Listen, you have some bumps and some bruises as you go on to the season, just like the Lightning have this year, but they're looking to close it out on a positive note. And I want to start there. Let's focus on this game we got coming up against the Leafs tonight, because it's a big one. And not because, well, there's no effect on the standings, really. The Lightning already know who they're going to be playing in the Florida Panthers in the first round, but it's a big one for some different reasons. One, because you're battling that rest versus rust fun when it comes to getting ready for the postseason and trying to avoid injuries. And then, of course, it's also a big one for both Nikita Kucherov and Austin Matthews. Matthews, of course, going for 70 goals tonight, and Nikita Kucherov 1 assist away from hitting 100 assists and being the 5th player in NHL history to do so, because McDavid did it a couple of days ago. So let's start with this question. Guys, what are your expectations for this game? Are you hoping get Kuch 100 assists and then whatever happens, just avoid injuries? Do you want to win and go all out? What are some of the expectations here for you guys? Matt, I'll start with you.
Get the milestone first, and then maybe, play the lower lines for the rest of the game. Of course, we don't even know if 100 assists is a guarantee, but also, stick to your habits. Play strong, but don't overstress yourself. This game doesn't really matter, but again, it's at home. Do something for the fans. I don't know how many people are getting rested. If Stamkos or Point's getting rested, I know Vasi has the night off, but again, just play strong and, get the, not the monkey off your back, but get that record. Try as hard as you can. The game doesn't really matter, but also don't be too lackadaisical.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think that if I'm the Lightning and the Leafs really did fall into this trap against Florida last night, it's get Matthews the puck every time, let him try to score 70. He ended up not scoring at all. But if I'm the Lightning, in a way that doesn't feel detrimental to the team, try to get Kucherov that 100th assist. And from there, play guys that you would not normally play. I was really looking forward to the fact that we might see some call-ups today. And then I remembered we have 0 cap space. So according to John Cooper, they're probably going to play light tonight. Like, as far, maybe not even dress a couple guys. So this is going to be really interesting. I think the lines themselves are going to be generated while we're still live. So we could talk about that when it's time. But it's going to be a really interesting game. And Cooper was saying, like, listen, guys, it would be really cool to see Austin Matthews get 70 as a fan of the sport, especially when you're in that building. But I'm the opposing coach, and I have to figure out how not to let that happen. So he had a few zingers in his press conference, really good press conference.
I'd say I'm going to take it a step further and say 101 or 102 assists. Um, and yeah, I mean, picking up the win going into the postseason. I mean, I feel like last season the Bolts kind of slumped their way into the postseason, and it wasn't the best result at the end of the day. So, being able to play your game and feeling that confidence going into the first round, I think, is going to be a big thing. And, like y'all said, it's not really make it or break it, but having that little confidence boost, I think, does make a big difference.
Well, this is going to kind of go back to the last couple of games because, Alexa, you're right. The Lightning tend to slump might not be the right word, but they play very differently once they clinch. Ever since the sweep in 2019 and how hard they pushed, they just don't play that hard. And they just go, okay, we made the playoffs, we're good. And then they turn it on all of a sudden once they get into the postseason. It's tough to watch as fans because you want to see your team do good and, of course, win. But I want to ask you guys about this. How do you feel about the last couple of games that we've seen here from the Lightning? Because listen, the truth is they have not played well. The power plays kind of struggled a little bit. They've given up a lot of big defensive chances, but it becomes that ultimate question of, is this the Lightning just doing what they always do and coasting into the postseason? For me personally, I think there has to be that balance where you want to coast into the postseason and just get ready for that and save all your energy for there. But you also don't want to let bad habits creep into your game, which seems like it's kind of happened a little bit for the Lightning over these last couple of games. But guys, how are you feeling? Michael, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the last couple of games for the Bolts?
I will say this much. As far as the last couple of games go, as far as the season series goes against our first round opponent, you can throw it all out the window. Like, I've been a proponent of this for a couple of years now, where the playoffs are an entirely different beast. And being that the Lightning's best record since like the clinching day was in 2019, and then they ended up winning 0 playoff games. And then the 2 years that they win the Stanley Cup, one of the years they go 3-6-1, and the other one they go 3-3-1. This is data via Paul Driscoll on Twitter. He did an entire spreadsheet on it. Like, guys, it doesn't matter. Like, I understand they're not playing well in a couple of aspects, but like they're saying all the right things, which makes me think like, okay, when game one comes around, it's not going to be like they're going to flip the switch kind of thing, but they're going to be fine. Like, hopefully, injuries aside, and we'll get to that they're going to play at a level which we don't have to be necessarily concerned about in that first round.
The things that have bothered me over the last, let's say, week and a half, when we've had this, 3-game losing streak, is they've been against lesser opponents. And there's been some habits that, we've seen pop up and that we really haven't seen in the last couple of months or so. And what separates this year, especially from last year, is that they're not really slumping their way into the playoffs. Yeah, we've had a little bit of a skid in recent days, but again, when you look at this year compared to last year it was just sleeping your way from the All-Star break in and just kind of whatever, let's just get in. It seems like it's a bit of a different mentality this year where they've really started to pick things up if you ignore the last week or so of hockey. So overall, I'm not, unconfident or anything. I'll still take this team against any other team in a best of 7 series, but I'm a little concerned, but not really concerned. Again, this team, I love it. They prove me wrong all the time, so I'm just hoping they do it again.
Yeah, and that's the big thing, Matt. You mentioned it. It's lesser opponents, which I think makes things a little more difficult. You like to be Wilson. For me, the loss against Washington drove me crazy just because I'm a big, not big Washington fan. Me and my Washington rival. But Alexa, what about you? How do you feel with these last couple of games for the Bolts?
Yeah, I mean, they've been kind of rough, like you said, the power play in particular, like they haven't been converting. So, I don't think that they've scored a power play goal in the last few games. But honestly, looking at it, I did miss a couple of the games, but the ones I did see, it did seem like, there was some kind of fluky, like you're just missing the net and it's just like, the puck is right there and it's just not going in kind of situation. So, and that happens sometimes, and especially, like you said, like, you do want to kind of conserve your energy a little bit too. And, not oversell yourself like right before the playoffs as well. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that they're going to be fine against the Panthers. I think that it's going to be a close series. But, I think that they have every opportunity. The Bolts have every opportunity to pull it out for sure.
History is on the Lightning side when you look at things because they've done this before and they've mostly been fine for the last couple of years. Obviously, last year was a tough one for the Bolts, but they've also beaten a lot of the teams in the East in the postseason because they've had so much success over the last couple of years. They've beaten Boston multiple times. They've beaten Toronto. They've beaten Florida. So history is on your guys' side. I think it's just tough for some fans and completely understandable, especially the ones paying to go to these games because their tickets don't get any cheaper now that the Lightning have clinched the playoffs. They stay the same. So there is, I think, that factor to consider as well. Before we get back into the game tonight for the Bolts, I want to dive a little more into the playoff series coming up here for the Lightning, where they're taking on the Florida Panthers. By the way, thank you guys so much for tuning in if you're here with us. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss out on more live episodes just like this one. And follow us on social media at RBLR Sports and at RBLR Lightning. But the Bolts taking on the Florida Panthers in this one, the Battle of Florida Round 3. Guys, this has been an amazing matchup over the last couple of years. We're getting it again here. These two teams do not like each other. Even though Lightning have history on their side in this one, Michael, as you mentioned, playoffs are an entirely different beast. It's a new year. The Panthers are a much better team than they have been in years past, and the Lightning are maybe not as strong as they have been in years past. So, Matt, Alexa, I'll start with you this time. What are your thoughts going into this series? How do you feel the Lightning match up against the Florida Panthers?
I mean, first of all, we have the best playoff goalie in the league. I mean, I think that the players poll that went out recently, it was like, who do you want to have in net, in the playoffs? And it's Vasilevsky.
Overwhelmingly.
Yeah. And he, even though, the last few games haven't been great, he has been playing a lot better. He seems like he's, really made a full recovery from his back surgery and everything. I mean, it seemed like it took a little bit of time, but he's in form, and yeah, I mean, Panthers are no joke, especially this year. But like I said, I think we have the Bolts have every opportunity to pull it out.
I'm confident. Again, like you're saying, history is on our side. We know how this team plays. Yeah, the regular season typically isn't very kind to us. I remember before the sweep of 2022 against the Panthers, I think the last game we played against them, it was like another 9-goal deficit, just a blowout game, something like that. And then the playoffs start and everything is completely different. I'll be honest, I'm a little bummed. I was kind of not hyping up, but I was preparing myself for a Boston series. That's what it seemed like it was going to be for, a couple weeks, even, a month or so. I was expecting Boston, and they have been playing pretty poorly the second half of the season. They're still second in the division, but they've got a lot of overtime losses, a lot of loser points. I was really prepared for that. And I think the Panthers are a better team. The standings say so. But I'm not too worried. Yes, I'm concerned. The Panthers are a deep team, maybe the deepest they've ever been. They've got a really hot goalie, but I feel like the Lightning, for whatever reason, they just know how to pick them apart. Even the 6-game series back in 2021 en route to that cup, it was a very close series, but I never felt like the series was in jeopardy, pretty much at all, especially after game one, that electric game one. I think the Lightning, they very much know how to deal with little brother.
They have done a really good job of figuring out what makes the Panthers kind of edgy. Like the Panthers were really good last year when it came to getting opponents off their game, and the Lightning, for every criticism of them losing the first round, they didn't have the opportunity to face the Panthers last year. That seems to be the one team that Florida's really had a problem with. And so I think, history is, as we've said, definitely on their side. Sergei Bobrovsky has been really good for the Panthers since February 1st. And I know in those other two matchups, the goaltending wasn't great for the Panthers. I want to say in 2021, they had like 3 goalie changes. And then in 2022, they had a goalie change again. And then as far as the Panthers overall are concerned, they've actually, and I know I mentioned like, oh, the past couple, weeks don't really matter. But the Panthers have actually kind of struggled since March 1st. They're 12-8-2, so they're 12-10. That is 500 hockey, basically. You're a couple of games off of 500 hockey. And for a team that looked unbeatable for much of this year, and same can be said with Boston, yeah, they're very much beatable. Like, this is going to be a very interesting series when you scale back and don't just think about like records and everything like that.
And the thing that gives me a bit of solace as well about the upcoming series too is that the Panthers, they never really seem to be able to translate their regular season success into the postseason and vice versa. Like last year, they really kind of struggled. And I think they were the last team or one of the last teams to really make it into the playoffs, and they have a historic run and make it all the way to the finals just to get stomped. But every team on the way, they kind of stomped them. So and the Boston series, that was crazy. But then the year before that, they won the President's Trophy and got swept by the Lightning and barely beat Washington. I know it was a 6-game series, but those games were close. And Washington was a bit of a weak team in 2022. And you can even look back to the year they made the finals in 1996, I think it was. They were not a good regular season team then either. And they I don't think they squeaked into the playoffs, but they weren't taken seriously as a contender at all and make it to the finals just to get stomped again. But still, the regular season success doesn't always seem to translate into playoff success for the Panthers, and this has been a very good regular season for them. So that's what gives me a little bit of confidence also heading into this series.
So sorry, Jake, just to switch it over from bashing the Panthers to upping the Lightning a little bit.
Sorry.
Just looking at our leaders. It's always fun to do that. But since 2020 or since the bubble season, so Nikita Kucherov is first in playoff points for the Lightning. I believe first in the NHL, but I only have the Lightning statistics. He's at 99 points through 77 games. We talked a while ago, probably a couple of weeks ago, about how Kucherov is at another level this season. We've talked about that over and over again, but especially a couple of weeks ago, we talked about how he's playing more this season and he's still dominating. So if you get Kucherov 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes more of ice time, how many more points is he going to put up? How much more of his impact is he going to make against the Panthers?
Because we have had deeper teams in the past as well, where we haven't had to rely on literally Nikita Kucherov and anybody else. So I think that's probably going to be a tactic heading into this series is, pretty much time and time again, every time you put him out on the ice, he does something good. It might not lead to a scoring chance or anything, but they definitely don't get outscored. So that might be a tactic coming into this, is just really, really leaning on your top horses being Nikita Kucherov and Braden Point. Even in these last couple of games, the rough couple of games, they were the best line out there, and that's nothing new. That's the same thing for, let's say 78 games this year. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of Kucherov, and I hope it'll be effective. It seems historically he plays great against the Panthers, along with his right-hand man, Braden Point. He loves playing against the Panthers too.
It's like that chart for Nikita Kucherov, get Nikita Kucherov the puck. Does he get the puck? Yes or no? And then it goes back to get Nikita Kucherov the puck. Like the whole thing just cycles back to get Nikita Kucherov the puck, because more than likely you're going to find a way to get to the back of the net no matter what he does, because he's just that unbelievably good. Of course, again, going for 100 assists tonight against the Toronto Maple Leafs, trying to become the 5th player in NHL history to do that. By the way, that stat is crazy to me when you look at it, because, of course, McDavid did it when the Oilers absolutely destroyed the Sharks. I think it was the final. It was
9-2.
Yeah. The 9-2 is the final. Okay. But you look at that stat and you have 3 players that did, I can't remember off the top of my head, with McDavid being the most one. And then there's Wayne Gretzky, who's done it like
11
times.
No, 11
11
times. 11 times.
consecutively. 11 times.
which is just unbelievable. And to think Kucherov can be put on that list with all those unbelievable players tonight is super exciting. You have to wonder how that game could change too. If we see the early milestones tonight, if Kuch gets an early assist and even Matthews gets an early goal, do those guys play even less throughout the rest of the game? Knowing Nikita Kucherov, I don't think so. I think he'll keep playing the whole way through and he doesn't care. But
Austin Watson, 25 minutes.
I'm here for it.
I think a lot of Lightning fans would like to see Kucherov get the assist and then he just leaves the game and doesn't come back because the last thing you need is any issues with him. But here, let's bring this up because we kind of talked about this, guys, before we started the live stream. Austin Matthews going for 70 goals tonight. Obviously, it's an incredible milestone to hit. I can't even remember the last time a player has hit 70 goals. Hang on, Michael. I see you keep rolling your eyes. I'm bringing this up not because I'm getting excited about Austin Matthews. I hope he doesn't score tonight, and I hope he doesn't hit 70, stays at 69. But when Stamkos hit 60 goals and he was in Toronto, we got the standing ovation for Stamkos by a classy move from the Winnipeg fans. So here's the question, guys. If Matthews hits 70 goals, does he get a cheer from the crowd? Maybe not a standing ovation, just a cheer from the crowd, from the Lightning faithful if he hits 70 goals. I don't think it happens. I think it might sound like it happens because there's going to be enough Leafs fans there. But I'm curious your guys' take on. And would you do it? Let's do that. So, does it happen tonight? And would you do it if you were in the building?
That's what I was going to follow up with, was if you would do it. Me personally, I would not. I respect Austin Matthews. I know he's a great player. I would just hate to be the team he scores 70 against. If I was in the building, I'd be cross-armed like, no, this sucks. I don't like this. And that's just the brutal truth of me being a Homer fan. So I think some people will. I don't think a lot of people are as diehard and Homer as I am, or, all of us on this podcast. Some people can, respect game. And like you did say, Jake, there's going to be a lot of Leafs fans in the audience. If it happens, it's going to sound like everybody's doing it.
Well, Matt Tompkins is pitching a shutout tonight, so I don't think it's going to happen.
How great would that be? Matt Tompkins stops Matthews from getting 70.
I'm conflicted on this. I don't think I would, but it would also be cool to see. Like, John Cooper's right. If you're in the building, that's a cool milestone to see. But am I giving him a standing ovation or cheering for him? No, he plays for the other team. Like, I want my team to win. Why would I cheer for the other team?
I say, I think game respects game. He gets a golf clap, and that's okay. That's about it. Just
See, Alexa, I was kind of with your thought. This is tough for me too, because you guys know I'm a diehard fan, and I'm very homerish when it comes to the Lightning. I try not to be when it comes to reporting on the team and being fair, but my own personal opinion, I'm definitely a big homer. It is a big thing for Matthews, and I loved when the Winnipeg fans gave Stamkos a standing ovation for hitting 60. So I think I would stand, but I'd be like one of those, like shaking my head as I'm giving a light clap, really upset that it happened against us. But, I've got to show respect because it is a huge milestone to hit 70 goals, especially 70. This isn't just 60, it's 70 goals. I don't know. Do we know the last time that it doesn't matter. It's Austin
1992 Matthews. Season, Teemu Selanne and Alex McGillney with 76 goals.
There you go. So it's been a while since someone has done that. Hopefully Kucherov is the one that gets his milestone. We don't have to worry about that question. And Matt Tompkins does what Matt Tompkins does and pitches a shutout tonight against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Boy, how great would that be for the Lightning to get Matt Tompkins to do that? But sticking with this game, we kind of talked about a little bit. The lines are probably going to look very different for both these teams. Because you're trying to avoid, I think injury is the biggest thing. I don't think anybody wants to, worry about the rest and rust thing. Most players want to play and keep their game up and ramp up and get ready to go, but you don't want to get hurt. The Lightning have already battled a couple of injuries in these last couple of games. I think most notably, probably Tyler Mott and Luke Glendening. Mott has been out day to day. Glendening just left the game and never came back. I don't think they've released anything on his status. Michael, do we know? Have they said anything officially on what his status is? Oh, you're muted.
We'll get him back in about that. So Hedman is out tonight. He is battling an illness. So can't wait to go 11-7 question mark. I don't know what the lines are going to look like tonight. This is going to be very weird.
So Hedman out with an illness. Do we know? They said anything about Luke Glendening on his official status?
So this is from Chris Cran. This is going to be interesting. Don't see Sorelli, Glendening, Mott, Fleury, or Hedman.
Okay, so a lot of big names out. I think there's going to be a lot of big names.
We'll be playing down a skater, basically.
Two centers, two good face-off centers too. So
that changes the game. Well, the Leafs are going to be without some players too, I believe. They're not going to have their full lineup as well, so it's going to be a very different game. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, you're avoiding the injury thing. Hopefully, Mott is going to be ready to go playoff time. I think most of these guys are dealing with minor injuries, and anytime a guy has any of a minor injury, they're not going to risk it whatsoever because you want them back for the playoffs. It's you wonder how that's all going to play out with the injuries. I would say, guys, if there is any player that gets nicked up at all during this game, don't even bring him back. Don't even worry about the game. Don't bring him back and go from there.
I think that's fair. Again, how many different ways we can say it, but just mitigate, any injury you can. Just get, like we were saying earlier, just get Cooch the 100 points and then just throw whoever out. Whoever wants to go out, just go out. Who cares?
Just the whole team walk off and leave. And
just leave Sherry on the top line by himself.
Okay, wait. I think we need to talk about this. Connor Sherry, who's had a rough season. Things have not been going well, and I partially blame myself for this because you guys know here on the RBLR podcast, I hyped up Brandon Hagel when he first got here. I said he was going to hit 30 goals. He hit 30 goals, and I haven't shut up about it because I was so excited that he did it. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to go 2 for 2. And I hyped up Connor Sherry because I thought he was going to have a good season with the Bolts. He was so good with Ovechkin and with Crosby. I thought he would do it again with either Kucherov, Point, or Stamkos. It has not happened that way whatsoever. Sherry just hasn't been able to put up a ton of goals. Every time he's out there, he seems like he's snake bitten. Just hasn't played that great. So what are your guys' thoughts on Connor Sherry? He's signed for another year, so more than likely
2 years.
will be. Well, that's including this year, though, correct?
No. He signed a 3-year contract.
Oh.
Did he? I remember him signing it
3 years for $2 million a year.
Okay, well, so 2 more years. But, I still think Connor Sherry can be a good player. Listen, there's no ifs and buts about it. He's not had a good year. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on Connor Sherry and what's been going on this year.
So he did play on the top line, for 1 or 2 games this last week, and he did score a goal and he did have an assist. So maybe he is just one of those players. Maybe he's like an Alex Barré-Boulet who can only play in the top 6 and is useless in the bottom 6. I really feel like that's kind of what we're seeing here is top 6
tonight.
It's a veteran ABB essentially. So yeah, he probably will be playing tonight. And I thought he looked decent playing with Point and Kucherov. I maybe wouldn't want to see that, when games matter, but it was a decent fill-in. But yes, overall, it has been a rough season. I thought he was on a 1-year deal. I didn't know he was on a 3-year deal. That is a little disheartening. And the thing is, if
he's got a bounce back year, 40 points for Connor Sherry next year. Book it.
He's not getting any younger, and unless the Bolts can find value, maybe not even cheaper, but a better player for the same price, maybe younger, just with a better skill set, it's not an unmovable contract. Teams want players. You could easily, maybe offload him to the Sharks or the Blackhawks, a team that really needs and wants players. Maybe the Utah team. It's not an unmovable deal. If the coaches and, if John Cooper really didn't like him, JBB really didn't like him, he probably would be gone by now, but I don't know. Maybe they like him, but I think he has picked his game up essentially is kind of what I'm trying to say too, is he had a rough start, but it got better throughout the course of the year. Still not exactly the player we thought he was going to be.
Yeah, I am a little concerned about that heading into the future. I'm not going to lie. But again, I know we're focusing on Game 82 and the playoffs. And if we had to pick X factors, I think that Connor Sherry, he's going to have to play well if he plays. We've seen over the past couple of weeks, he has been sitting in the press box, and Mitchell Chaffee has gotten that opportunity instead.
Good point.
And let's not lie, Mitchell Chafee has played a hell of a lot better than Connor Sheary has.
I love Mitchell Chafee. Inject me with him.
He's been fantastic. That is both a compliment to Mitchell Chafee and also an indictment on Connor Sheary. As a leader, I think that if he has to play due to injury or other circumstances, he is a good player to put in the pinch in a pinch in the playoffs. But that's not what the Lightning got him for. They got him so he could be that middle six player that provides the scoring depth that they had during their glory days and sort of lacked last season.
I mean, I agree he hasn't provided a lot of depth. I do think that like having the right people around him is important for Connor Sheary. I wonder how he would do. I don't know if he ever played on the line with Jeannot and Paul, but I wonder if he was like with like, bigger, more physical type players, if that would make kind of a difference. Just, getting him into the right position, might make a big difference. But yeah, I mean, I agree. He hasn't really produced what was expected of him.
And one of my biggest issues with him as well, this has really turned into the what's wrong with Connor Sheary segment, but he has flashes of brilliance too. Like there are plays where it seems like he can pull something off and then he just kind of fumbles the puck on a rather easy play. Don't ask me to do it. I'm just the guy that, comes and complains about it, but there have been some times where I'm like, "Oh, what a play. Oh, dang it." And it just falls apart so quickly too. So when you see that over and over and over, it kind of does stack up against you. I know it happens to every single other player in the world, but those other players provide in other areas as well. I also just don't think he's not a bottom six kind of guy. He's not a checker. He's very fast, and he had good hands at one point. He had really good speed at one point, but again, Mitchell Chafee is just a better, role player for what his role is.
So sorry to interrupt, Jake. We do have lines for tonight if you guys are interested in that.
Tell me.
Duclair, Point, Kucherov, so that goes unchanged. Stamkos, Hagel, and nobody. So they are the two line that for 11 and 6 because they're going one skater down. Asamont, Paul, Chafee, that line also remains unchanged. Jeannot, Sheary, and Watson. So Connor Sheary, fourth line center.
Can we talk about that last line right there? Jeannot, Sheary, and Watson. That is going to be an interesting line out there because you've got Jeannot, who's a fighter. He has goal scoring ability, but just hasn't been able to do it as much this year. Granted, he has been injured for a majority of the year, so that hasn't helped him. He has scored more than he did last year. And then you have Watson, who is a pure fighter. And then you have Connor Sheary, who's more of a playmaker, but hasn't been able to do anything offensively. That is going to be an interesting line for tonight's game against the Leafs.
Hey, Michael, do you know if Tanner Jeannot has more points than Connor Sheary this year?
I'm looking that up right now.
I figured you were.
Well, I was looking up, does Austin Watson have more goals than Connor Sheary? He does.
Okay,
not.
Listen. All right, so for those that are just tuning in, by the way, welcome. We appreciate you guys joining in. And for those that don't know, I try to defend Connor Sheary as much as I can because
Jake opened up a can of worms, is what he did.
So yeah, listen, when Connor Sheary scores the game-winning goal in the Stanley Cup Finals, we'll come back to this conversation. But listen, Sheary's had a bad year.
Connor Sheary has 2 more points than Tanner Jeannot this year.
Wow. Okay. Did not expect that.
I will say the defense pairs for tonight with no Victor Hedman. Mil Lilleberg is getting top pair duties with Darren Radish. Nick Perbix, Eric Chernak. So that's 2 righties on the second pair. And then Calvin DeHaan and Matt Dumba. I have a defense core defense 6 that I'd like to see, and it's very much not that.
Can you tell me?
We could not do that in game 1. That would be fantastic.
I would expect, though, game 1 starts, that's when you can start making call-ups because you don't have to worry about the cap anymore. I would be shocked if Max Crozier is not up here with the Lightning.
That's a good shout.
I mean, he'll be called up, but he's not going to be a regular. I think he's still buried in the lineup behind Hayden Fleury. I don't know what his health situation is.
I don't know if he is. I think if Crozier is up here, he plays. So let's go around. Let's focus on this defense core. Matt, you asked Michael earlier, what's the core 6? Michael, what's your core 6?
So Victor Hedman on the first pair with Darren Radish. Your second pair is Emil Lilleberg on the left, Nick Perbix on the right. Your third pair is Matt Dumbo on the left, Eric Chernak on the right. I think that is your best 6 in the best positions that can generate them some success. Because Lilleberg next to Perbix is like the best of both worlds. They've played very well together. Perbix away from Lilleberg has not. So if they're going to win, you need all 3 defensive pairs to be good. And Nick Perbix specifically, you need him to be good.
Do you guys like the Hedman Radish pairing? I can't say I'm a big fan of it. I think they're both offensive-minded, puck-moving defensemen. I don't know if they really complement each other. I not that I haven't been a big fan of it, but I feel like there is ways to better distribute, puck movers with defensive guys, and I think the Victor Hedman Darren Radish pair is a bit overloading. Do you guys share the same sentiment, or am I just still a Radish hater?
Jake, go for it.
Oh, yeah, I think there's definitely a little bit of your Radish hate mixed in there for sure. But I can kind of understand it because there's have been a couple of times where both those guys, push up on the play a little bit, maybe when they shouldn't have. Hedman's done that a lot this year, even though he still had a great year overall. So I can understand where you're coming from, Matt. Listen, for me, for the most part, there's a reason I'm not a coach in the NHL. I'll leave the defensive pairings to John Cooper and the rest of the coaching staff. But Michael, I tend to agree with you on your decor that you had. For me, Hedman, Radish, Perbix, Lilleberg, Crozier, and Dumba are my favorites.
You're leaving Chernak out in that situation.
Did I leave Chernak out? Oh, I did.
Yeah, you put Crozier in.
Well, Chernak.
I'd expect that of Michael, not.
Hey.
I'll be honest with you. I didn't even realize I did that, so my apologies.
I will say that if Crozier does get called up, if you put Crozier with Lilleberg, which was an awesome pair in January,
yeah,
then you could put Chernak with Hedman, and then you just figure out what to do from there.
So I think that works.
Yeah.
That was going to be another one of my questions, and we really haven't seen it pretty much at all, or at least for like a couple of years, is Hedman and Chernak. And I think it'd be a good pairing. You've got, defense. I'm a rock Eric Chernak and Victor Hedman, who loves to jump up in the play and never back check. I think those two would complement each other better than Darren Radish and Victor Hedman, or Victor Hedman and Matt Dumber or something like that. I really want to see those two together, but I think that's also overloading as well. Like Eric Chernak, to me, with the current roster and Sergachev out, is the second best defenseman on this team. So it is a bit of overloading, but I'd like to see that. Do you guys know why we don't see that at all? Do you just don't think they play well together? I just feel like we don't see it a lot at all.
Well, real quick, before we answer that question too, Matt, I want to throw it to our viewers as well who have tuned in. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Let us know in the comments what defensemen you'd like to see for the Bolts in the playoffs when it comes to that time, assuming everybody is healthy as well. And Max, sorry, could you repeat the question one more time for me?
Just why do you think we don't ever see Victor Hedman and Eric Chernak play on a pair together?
Because Eric Chernak is not Anton Stralman.
What is that supposed to mean?
Because I think you give Eric Chernak a little bit more defensive credit than he deserves. He's a good defenseman, but his best success was with another good defensive defenseman. There's a thing that goes on where it's basically a sword and a shield. So you have a good offensive defenseman and a good defensive defenseman. The sword is the offense, the shield is the defense. The Lightning's success actually culminated from 2 shields, which was Ryan McDonough and Eric Chernak. Mm-hmm. So if you put Eric Chernak next to another good defensive defenseman, that's when you unlock his best capabilities, I think.
And that pair was elite. Ryan McDonough and Eric Chernak, they were elite.
If they were still going on, I think the Lightning would be a lot more of favorites than they are.
Well, thank the cap for that and losing guys like Ryan McDonough. Alexa, what about you? What are you looking for in the decor come playoff time?
I mean, hopefully, obviously we'd like to see Sergachev back sooner rather than later. I think there's the potential for him to come back for the second round. So, definitely looking forward to that. As far as Chernak is concerned, I mean, maybe him being paired with Dumba might not be the worst pairing as well. But yeah, I don't know why he doesn't play with Hedman. It seems interesting, but I also kind of like the idea of like having more of that lockdown, like that defense and defense. Because it does seem like that's kind of been lacking in the last couple of years to an extent, is just like that ability to just shut down the opposing team once, the Bolts get the lead. So, more of that, please. That's what I would like.
One last question I do have. It's not necessarily Lightning related, but if it's not the Lightning, which team do you guys have coming out of the East? And you know what? Because it's a playoff show, playoff prediction show anyway. I guess not a prediction show, but pre-playoff show. Who do you have coming out of the West as well? Jake?
It's tough. The East, I think, is a bloodbath again. I think the teams in the East are mostly better than the teams in the West, although the West can be hard to predict because there's just not a lot of teams that can really put themselves out in front. Michael or Alexa, do you guys have one ready? Because I got to look here and think a little bit.
I think you're muted again.
Go ahead, Alexa.
I mean, I'm kind of rooting for Vancouver. I don't know if I've said that before, but honestly, like they're probably my team in the West. And I mean, seeing the Avs make it again might be interesting as long as they're not playing the Bolts. I just having lived here through that a couple of years ago, that was a lot. So I don't know if I'm ready for that again, especially so soon. But yeah, as far as the East goes, I think, unfortunately, because I can't stand them, I think the Rags might make a run if it's not the Bolts. But yeah, so maybe Rangers versus Canucks.
That'd be a very fun fight. That'd actually be a 1994 rematch, too. That'd actually be really fun.
Look at that, pulling from the old statistics and the old history books. I love
Random stats, you know me. Or random facts.
For me, out of the West, I think Dallas is a sneaky team. I think they're very good and they kind of get underrated in the West when people look at, Vancouver, Colorado, teams like that, even Vegas sometimes, although they've kind of struggled this year a little bit. Nashville's another sneaky team that, they're that team they're not better than everybody else, but if they get hot, they could be a dangerous team. We saw what they were on like a 15-game point streak or whatever it was for a while. They were playing really, really well. But I'll go with Dallas coming out of the West. I think they'd be a fun team to see come out of it. Vancouver is not a bad pick either, Alexa. For the East, for me, personally, if I had to pick one that I wanted to see, it's probably Carolina. They're just a fun team for everybody to watch. And, I think they've got a pretty good team as well. For who I think is actually going to come out of the East, if it's not the Lightning, I mean, you look at the Eastern Conference. I think the Eastern Conference is one of the best. I don't think the Rangers or the Hurricanes can quite get out of there where they need to be yet. So, as much as I hate to see it, I could easily see Florida or even Boston making a run, depending on who wins that series. So,
I thought you were going to say Washington.
Matt, no. I hope Washington gets swept in the first round, but actually, I don't even know who Washington's playing in that
Rangers.
They're playing the Rangers.
That's a tough series for them. That's a really, really tough series. I don't think Washington can beat New York. We'll have to set up a playoff bracket challenge for RBLR, and maybe we can get some of the fans involved as well and
That'd
see
be fun.
Who comes out on top. Yeah, that should be a fun one. All right, so last thing for tonight, we got the game coming up here in just a few minutes. So we'll end the show here relatively soon, so you all can go and watch the game tonight. The Lightning take on the Toronto Maple Leafs in Game 82. Predictions for tonight, guys. Let's go. Your final score prediction, and of course the winner, and then does Kucherov / Matthews hit their milestones? Who wants to start?
I'll start. I think this game is going to be very silly. I think, it's just a hodgepodge of what the heck ever. I'm going with a 7-5 final for the Bolts.
Okay.
I don't have not that I don't have faith in Matty Tompkins, but he's, a AHL goalie. And the Leafs, despite, maybe them resting some guys, I still think they're a very good high-powered offense team. They'll be able to do some damage, but I think these very last end of the year games, they just happen to get very silly. And going with what Alexa said earlier, yeah, let's take it and run Kucherov with a multi-point night. He's not getting just 100. He's going to get 103.
Is Matthews hitting 70?
Sure.
Well, you said 7 to 5. I mean, if Matthews doesn't score a 5-goal game,
that'd be funny.
That'd be really funny. Michael, what about you?
Jake, since you asked, my Stanley Cup Finals prediction is Carolina versus Winnipeg. So,
my apologies.
Yeah.
There's so many things going on running through my head. My bad.
So I kind of agree with Matt, but at the same time, I do think while it's going to be silly, it's going to look a lot like a preseason game because everybody's sort of going through the motions. Except for Matt Tompkins, because this might actually be an audition for him. So I'm going to say, I'm going to say 3-1 Lightning. I think that Kucherov is going to hit his milestone. I don't think Matthews is going to hit his milestone. Matt, you mentioned that Matt Tompkins is an AHL goaltender. I would like to point out that Jonas Johansson has a worse save percentage this year than Matt Tompkins.
Does he really? Wow.
Yeah.
That's
So,
surprising. He played really good in the Ottawa game or
he's had one bad game this entire
Tompkins
year.
has not played bad. Tompkins has played well. He's only played in 4 games now, I think it is. 5 games. So
whichever his most recent game was, I thought he played very well. The team around him did not. I can't remember which.
I think
game
it was the Ottawa game.
Maybe, but regardless, whatever his last game was, he played very good, and the team let him down.
Alexa, what about you?
9-8-1 and Johansson's at 9-8-0. So
okay,
one.
He's better. He's better.
Great tape. Okay, Alexa, what about you for your predictions tonight?
5-4 Lightning. Matthews and Cooch get their milestones. Cooch has a 3-point night, which would put him at 145 for the year.
It's a nice even number. I like it. Well, not even number, but you know what I mean on the 5s and 10s. I'm gonna go 3-0 shutout for Matt Tompkins.
Wow.
Yeah.
Kucherov factors in on all 3. Matthews doesn't get his milestone. Cooch hits it. And Sherry scores the other 2 goals. So,
do you have an extra pair of those blue tinted glasses, Jake?
Yeah, maybe a little bit. If I'm looking away from my blue tinted glasses, it's probably more. I could see this scene being a 1-goal game, just because the way these things go with the Leafs, it's usually tight ones, 3-2, honestly. And I think Matthews and Kucherov both hit their milestones tonight. Wouldn't surprise me whatsoever. Although the last time these teams played, granted they had more full lineups, Matthews only scored on that power play with at least won a quick draw and got the quick shot out. Other than that, Matthews did not do much. So it also wouldn't be crazy to me that if Matt Tompkins puts on a show and the Lightning shut down Austin Matthews. So we'll see. Should be a lot of fun. Should be a lot of craziness going on for the Lightning tonight. But guys, I think that's going to do it for us in this episode, this live edition here on RBR Lightning. Thank you so much to everybody who tuned in for this little pregame / playoff preview. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes. Coming back already. Why not? It's free and it really helps us out. And we really do appreciate it. Follow us on social media at RBLR Sports, at RBR Lightning as well, so you don't miss out on future content. And you can also check out our other amazing podcasts, the Rays podcast, the Rowdy Bucks, all fantastic shows that I highly recommend you go check it out. So, guys, that's going to do it for us in this one. We'll talk to you next time. Go Bolts.
Thank you for tuning into this presentation by RBLR Sports. On your way out of the stadium, please remember to like and subscribe.